remembers a series of abductions beginning in childhood, when she was forced to play telepathic games with the aliens.
How do you play the game?
If I pick up that one, he'll let me go.
What are you feeling?
I want to go home.
Mm-hmm. What does he tell you about that?
If I pick it up, he'll let me go.
The Aarons family believes alien kidnappers have not only intruded in the lives of their children, but are now visiting one of their grandchildren.
He calls them his little buddies that come in his room and play. He said he wanted to watch the ship leave. I'm not going to tell him that it's not real, because it is real.
Skeptics would say that Dan, Joyce, and Heather could have constructed their stories together before hypnosis.
But then they'd have to know how to answer the trick questions and the leading suggestions, which I provide. Plus, there are many details they wouldn't know about that we would be looking for as markers for truthfulness and reliability with other abduction data.
Researchers also believe abductees are sincere because of another consistently reported feature of abduction accounts: the insertion of alien implants.
I turned my head to the right, and this taller being came over. And he kept telling me that it would be okay, that they wouldn't hurt me. And then they took this very long needle, and they put it up my right nostril, and I closed my eyes when I heard it crunch. And then I became very calm.
Objects said to be these implants have been recovered. MIT's David Pritchard has examined the composition of one of these reported implants in a laboratory and contends there is absolutely no physical proof of alien activity.
If we don't find physical evidence, and we haven't, then we have to lump this in the category of fairies, elves, near-death experiences people report, or we're going to be back to the days of the medicine men running our society.
With the help of hypnosis, Dan's anxiety subsided and he returned to work. But what once seemed out of this world has now become a part of his life.
If this is some sort of mental thing that's happening to people, then why aren't they out, why aren't the scientists or the doctors or whatever trying to find a cure?
Quite impressive video there, huh? This video, some of you might have seen it. It's aired over the years. It's from A&E. Actually, I've seen it every single year for about the past 6-7 years since I started looking at some of these videos. You see a lot of the similarities from what Dr. Carla Turner talked about right there on that video with this family that they had gone through. You see that this is not a very enjoyable experience for them. You see a lot of things, key things going on here. You see that it also is generational. There's a lot of issues just in that one little 8-minute piece that you can see that covers a lot of the aspects of what the abduction experiencers go through. As we were working with the abduction research, most of them were coming in through our monthly meetings. We had 4 or 5 there that were local, that we were working with, that we were able to work with. But something unusual was also happening in these monthly meetings. Remember, they're MUFON meetings that we had set up, open to the public. And one thing that MUFON had warned me about from the beginning is when you open up a meeting to the public that's about UFOs, you're going to get all sorts of people at these meetings. And it might not all be scientific based. I had no idea what they're talking about until I opened the meetings up. I had people coming in there with all sorts of things to talk about and share, which we opened it up to explore. I mean, they were just things I had absolutely never heard of. A A lot of it was things dealing with metaphysics. And I had no clue what metaphysics were about. And we opened up to look at what these people were talking about. A lot of it was what you call metaphysics and New Age teachings. We had to look at them as researchers because they're still part of that UFO puzzle in some way. Okay? If you're going to look for the answer to this UFO picture and what is the picture, you got to bring all those pieces to the puzzle to the table to get the final picture. Okay? You can't leave pieces out. Now, MUFON might not have been prepared to deal with those pieces, but it doesn't mean they should be excluded. Okay, so as an objective researcher and an open-minded researcher at the time, I said, let's look at all of it. So we started looking at these ideas that the people that were coming to the meetings had dealing with the New Age and the metaphysics. There seemed to be a spiritual connection there to the UFO phenomenon. And if you're only looking at it from a scientific point of view, you don't catch that. You have to step back and look at it a lot bigger. And that's what we were doing while we were working with the abduction experiencers. As a matter of fact, a lot of the abduction experiencers, on their quest looking for answers through their life, were brought into the study of New Age and metaphysics teachings. We kept seeing that over and over and over. It didn't seem like the Christian church was set up at the time to give them any help or answers. So they would go elsewhere looking for these answers. And they were finding that connection between the New Age and metaphysics and the UFO realm. As we were exploring it, I was attracted to it. When I first came into the whole thing with UFOs and becoming a MUFON member, I had no spiritual background at all. I was pretty much what you call an agnostic, which I felt was good because it kept me with no base to be able to distort my views. So my whole beginning into all of this with the work with MUFON and sighting investigations, I was absolutely had a clean slate, no belief system that was affecting it. I could look at this scientifically. As I opened up to looking at the New Age and metaphysical side of it, and as I became attracted to that, and I saw that there was something there that it's like I had this hole, and they had this thing that could fill that hole. You ever had that hole, you know that something's missing in your life? Well, here they had this something that they were offering. And it was a form of spirituality, and it was connected to what I was studying. So over the next couple of years, I went on that quest of enlightenment that these people go through and continue on in their life. I studied everything I could get my hands on dealing with metaphysics and the New Age beliefs. To the point to where I was a practitioner, where I was sharing with people and trying to bring them in. And it was interesting because there were a lot of poor Christians out there that I was converting to the New Age. Why was I able to do that? Because they really didn't know what they believed. And it didn't take too much to get them questioning what they thought they believed in. This went on for about 4 years. We're still working with the abductions and my study into the metaphysics. And in 1996, I had a female investigator working with me because, as you see, a lot of the abductions are with females. And it's hard to talk one-on-one with the females because, with a man, because some of it gets very personal. So I was very lucky to have, at the time, a girlfriend that would come on board and work with me and actually work with the female abduction experiencers. And then we'd compile notes and we'd be able to work like that. In 1996, fall of 96, we had a lot of things going on that were really tying up our time and keeping us busy. But there was a couple cases that we were working on that had a very, very dark effect on us dealing with these two cases. We couldn't put our finger on it, but something wasn't right. When we were dealing with the experiencers in their case, There was a serious oppression, and it was just like, oh man, what is this? You know, and what's affecting us here? Well, my girlfriend at the time was a Christian, and she didn't quite put all this together yet, but she was helping us in the abduction area. And she pulled me aside one day, and she says, you know, she says, something's wrong here. She says, these cases you're working on right now, she says, there's something very dark about them. There's something that seems like there's almost an evil presence involved. And of course, me and my New Age thinking said, you know, evil's just a perception you have of this. There's really no evil. You know, it's all relative, you know. And she says, no. She says, there's really something wrong here. She says, I know you feel it. She says, you know, when you're working in this area, I think you really need to have some covering, some type of protection on you as you go into this. I think there are some dark forces here that you need to be protected from. Of course, I reach in my pocket and pull out my trusty crystals, and I said, I got all the power I need right here. She says, no. She says, that's not what I'm talking about. She says, that's not going to help you. It isn't helping you right now. And I said, well, what are you getting at? And she says, I know of a help that can help you and can protect you. And I said, yeah, what do you got? You know, because I was always looking for something new. That's the whole thing about on your search for enlightenment. You're always looking for that next thing to bring you closer to it. You never really get there. It's just that carrot dangling out there. And I was all ready for this one. And she breaks out a Bible, and she sets it on the table, and she says, it's in here. And I said, oh, no. I said, that's got nothing to do with what I do. And she says, I think it does. I think you need to take a look at it. And no. We don't need to go there. And she says, oh, wait a minute. You said you're the most open-minded, objective investigator there is. You tell people that. And I said, I am. She says, then you'll take a look at this? I said, guess what? I just been had. So we sat down, and I said, show me what you got. You don't want to piss off the girlfriend. And I gave her time. And something miraculously happened. For the first time, I grew up in the church, left it as a teenager, got disgruntled because of the world, and but I knew, I'd heard the word before. I'd heard God's word growing up. Just put it away for 30 years. And she shared with me the gospel message out of the Bible. And it's like I had never heard it before. It's like blinders were taken off my eyes and earplugs were pulled out of my ears. All of a sudden, it made absolute perfect sense. And she showed me that there was a protection in there that I could have that was over everything that there is. And I said, you know what? I want that. So in 1996, in November, I became a Christian. I gave my life to Jesus Christ. I didn't know what I was. I mean, I'd been an agnostic, I'd been New Age. As an investigator, I'm asking, okay, what's a Christian? What am I now? Help me study this so I can find out what I am, what I have. So in December, that next month, I had 2 weeks off from work. We shut down the plant in the middle of December for 2 weeks, 1 week in the summer. And one of my other investigators, who was a Christian also, one of my founders of CE4, my partner Wes Clark at the time, he says, you know,